Gents, let's focus now on a massive game coming up in the Premier League. Manchester City against Liverpool after the international break. This is how we kick things off. Doesn't get much bigger than this one, does it? I mean, let's think about it. First against second place in the Premier League table. Guardiola against Klopp, all that tactical genius on show, battling against each other. Nick, I'm going to be lucky enough to be at the Etihad this weekend. Cannot wait for that. Do we think that this game can live up to some of the past masterpieces of Man City Liverpool? Because it feels like this is really even going into this game. And both teams are just showing glimpses of where maybe there's some weaknesses, but also where they're really, really good this season. So in my mind, at least, this is the perfect clash set up to see the best of these two teams.
Joe, I might tell you that if both of these teams were at 100% going into the Etihad, that I would tell you, yeah, but Man City's going to win. But I think the recipe is there for the potential for something special. We don't know. We don't expect Haaland to be at exactly 100% for this game. He'll probably be fine, but it's not like he's coming in rip-roaring form. Whereas Mohamed Salah looks absolutely phenomenal, coming off a 4-goal performance for Egypt. He has been probably short of short of Haaland's finishing. He's probably been the most effective attacker in the Premier League this year. He's providing goals, he's providing assists, he's making the players around him better. And so when you take all that into consideration, I imagine Jurgen Klopp probably feels like there's nothing left to lose, because we know what he's going to say if they lose. I can't believe we were playing at 7:30 in the morning or whatever the time difference is. So, yeah, I think anything is possible here. It's an exciting one.
Yeah, hopefully it's not windy, because we know he
hates the wind.
Yeah. But it's going to be classic. I think whatever happens, Andy, like even if there aren't, isn't a 5-5 draw or something crazy like that, these tactical battles, the intensity that these two teams play at, and the fact that the players pretty much now, the squads haven't changed a lot over the last 4 or 5 years for these teams. They know each other inside out, and it just feels like when they flip a switch when they play each other. And this is going to be really exciting. And I think we saw a few cracks starting to show for City before the international break. Let's cast our mind back to that 4-4 draw at Chelsea. And I think John Stones not being in there, Pep Guardiola said something about, we're in really big trouble. He's out injured. And some people raised their eyebrows and thought, hang on, Pep, you've got a lot of really good players still around. But I think it's a control thing for City, right? I can't remember a big game, them not having control like they didn't have against Chelsea. It was just chaotic. And maybe some of the games against Poch's Tottenham or Klopp's Liverpool, for stages of those, were the only time I could remember City looking that disheveled and disorganized. So I think this is kind of, from a neutral's perspective, what we're hoping we see, another thriller and another game where Liverpool get a lot of opportunities on the counter, because that seems what City are leaving the door open a lot more often for teams this season.
Yeah, I think that's a factor of Pochettino for sure, because I think his number one tactical goal is to take away the other team's best thing, or what they want to do, how they want to play. And if it's control, it's not easy to do, but if you have the right players and you've got the right commitment, then he has shown that he can put together a game plan that breaks up all of that beautiful play from Guardiola's Manchester City team when he was at Tottenham, and now obviously he's done it when he's at Chelsea. Who expected John Stones to be the missing piece that was hurting City's title challenge at this point? But I don't know how you can really argue against it, because you look at the team that he put out there against Chelsea. He didn't deviate from the formation, so that's clearly how he wants to play. He just moved Manuel Akanji up into the midfield, and it didn't work the same way that it did with Stones. They were a little bit they were a lot, I think, just kind of careless with possession. They gave the ball away in areas that they don't typically do, and that led to a lot of chances for Chelsea that City don't typically allow to other teams. And so control, I think, that is the word with Guardiola. It's not about the passes, it's not about the goals, it's about the control. And if you have the control, all of those other things will come. That's just a byproduct of being able to control the game and dictate and play it on their terms. That's always been, we got lost in the tiki-taka and Messi being there and Xavi and Iniesta and that generation. but it was just about controlling the game. That's all that Barcelona team ever did, and they frustrated you until you made a mistake, and then they beat you. I think teams in the Premier League, maybe there's something to do with why Pep hasn't stuck around for too long in one job, is you don't get figured out when you're that good and when you've got that much talent in the team, but teams certainly figure out a way to maybe limit how your potential, how good you can be on the day. And some of the top teams, if they've got enough talent the way that Liverpool have, they've always played Manchester City close. Pochettino's teams have played City close, and now Arsenal have gotten to that point where I think they know a little bit about City and the way that they play. So it's a fascinating time for Manchester City, because obviously they've won 3 in a row, and I think the narrative will be, well, they're getting bored with winning the Premier League, and so they're not taking it that serious. I think they're taking it very, very seriously. But some other teams, I think, have closed the gap maybe just a little bit on them. But of course, if De Bruyne comes back and he's his old self next month or in the new year, I don't know if any of it matters.
Yeah, I mean, I was just about to say, De Bruyne missing, obviously, can't underestimate how much of an impact that has in terms of control and just having someone there to dictate the tempo of a game. And as he often has done in these big games against Liverpool in the past, he's been key. Nick, you mentioned about Salah there. He's been sensational this season, almost under the radar in terms of how good he's been. But his partnership with Darwin Núñez up top, him on the right, and then Szoboszlai kind of just playing in midfield on that right side, that's been a real great combination for Liverpool so far. And I think they are looking like the Liverpool maybe 4 or 5 years ago in terms of how good they are on the counter. But the defensive issues there are the only problem I have with saying Liverpool are going to be going toe-to-toe with City for the title. If they can try and figure out some of these, to limit some of the chances, right, that they're giving up on the counter-attack, then I think that we are really going to see another sensational Liverpool team. But what are your thoughts been on the Reds so far this season?
I mean, I think you've pretty much summed it up in a perfect way. Szoboszlai is someone who I think I did not expect him to, and there have been some issues, but I didn't expect him to adjust so quickly, because what you've seen is someone who is the guy for Hungary, was the guy, well, one of the guys at his last club, but certainly not at the level of what Liverpool expects. And it usually takes guys some time to get used to being in that kind of a system. And go back to Calvin Phillips at Man City, or anyone at Man City, Jack Grealish. It takes time to adjust yourself to a system. It's been a lot of fish to water. And so can they handle it at the back? Most games, yes. Can they do it enough? That's what I wonder about. And because of that, these games are more important. If you don't know you're going to have the consistency over 38 games, you better take 4 to 6 points from Man City. Like, you better win the head-to-head, because there's no way you lose both games and win everybody else. Because you're right, the backs, they're fine. They're not bad, but they're not at the City level. They're not at the way Spurs were looking earlier this year. They're a flawed unit, a good but flawed unit.
Yeah, and the balance, right? It's just been a challenge for them with the midfield changes over the summer. They're still trying to figure that out, and I feel like this is obviously the best test we're going to get to see just how robust this Liverpool team can be, because I still think they are just better just going all out for it, and are going to get more results if they just throw caution to the wind and take a lot of chances. But they obviously have the players in form like Salah, Núñez, and others who are, Jota, etc. So many players they can put into the lineup, and they know that they're clinical and going to finish. Andy, what's your score prediction for this game, mate?
It's 2-1. I've gone back and forth through this segment on who it's going to be to. It's really, really close in this one. I think it shades towards City with them being at home. Yeah. And I think Nick got it right there. It's as much as Liverpool has struggled defensively, I think it's the midfield in front that's still causing some of the problems. Like, if you're playing Gakpo in there, you're playing McAllister, and it's just unbalanced, and we knew it was going to be. I think they'll find a way by the end of the season, but it's still relatively early. So I'll go 2-1 to City.
2-1. Nick, I'm going 3-2 to City. I think it's going to be more chaos. What about you?
Oh boy, I don't want to go with the same score as one of you guys, but I'm going to say. So I'll say 2-2. You know what? 1-1. I don't see City allowing two goals to many teams, especially coming off of 4-4, and that may see Pep Guardiola maybe a little bit more defensive. So I'm going to go 1-1, Liverpool to get a point, and everybody to think City's cooked before they don't lose again the rest of the season or something crazy.
Typical City. All right, hopefully it's a typical brilliant clash between these two teams. Manchester City against Liverpool coming up in the Premier League this weekend. We'll have it covered on Pro Soccer Talk, on NBCSports.com, analysis from on-site at the Etihad, how to watch information, team news, video highlights, everything you need from this absolutely titanic clash between Manchester City and Liverpool. Always fun when Guardiola and Klopp lock horns on the sidelines. Let's see what they can cook up this time.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. And for even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock. And be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you there.